Hello, welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. Me and Benji are here today talking about the Cricket World Cup once again. And in this latest game week, we have had, I'm not going to call it an upset, but England have just continued to be terrible. Afghanistan have continued to beat teams that are underperforming. And then Australia and South Africa absolutely battered two other teams. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. It was we'll go through. We'll just say what we've learned. We'll vent a little bit because we're both England fans. And yeah, if you like what we do, don't forget to subscribe. And also become a member because it's brilliant. So first things first, we'll talk about the Afghanistan-Pakistan game because I'd say that was the most interesting for me. Pakistan are a team in kind of minor disarray, I'd say. They don't really know what they're doing. They are confused, having a little bit of an identity crisis. And that in a similar way to England, just less extreme, they are a team that have a lot of good players and then just not really able to piece it together. What did you think of the Pakistan batting and I guess therefore the Afghanistan bowling?
I mean, I'm just a bit gutted, to be fair, that I forgot to take Mohammed Rizwan out of my fantasy team and replace him with Quinton de Kock.
Oh, that's a rough one.
Quinton de Kock, who is sat currently on my bench. Yeah, not the game week for that to happen, really. Which is a bit of a shame, to be honest. I'm a bit gutted about that, but I mean, they just performed, didn't they? Pakistan were just poor. I think Babar Azam was the only person that sort of applied themselves, but even then looked shaky and sort of almost was, as we mentioned at the start of the tournament, he's that key player that almost battered a bit within himself. Wasn't really very expressive. I enjoyed Shadab Khan being back in the side. I think that was a positive move for Pakistan. I think Shadab Khan upped the order as well because, I mean, I think he's a better bowling option than I can't see who they've dropped for Shadab Khan.
Maybe Mohammed Nawaz.
Oh yeah, Mohammed Nawaz. So I think he's a better bowling option than Mohammed Nawaz anyway, and I think he offers more with the bat as well. But yeah, so having Shadab Khan in, I think was a positive move, but just there wasn't really anything exciting from their innings. As I said, they seem to be a bit within themselves, and Afghanistan just played quite an exciting brand of cricket, and really brought the attack to Pakistan in a way that Pakistan didn't do in their innings. I think Pakistan were thinking, oh, if we can get over 250, it'll be easy. We'll bowl the team out easily. We've got a strong bowling attack, and maybe it's a bit of putting too much faith in Shaheen Shah Afridi, as they always seem to do. And I don't think it paid off. But yeah, it was just a bit of a lackluster attempt, wasn't it? And then, I mean, Afghanistan came in and they did everything that Pakistan should have done.
Yeah, and everything that a chasing team needs to do. Like they saw what the target was and they paced their innings accordingly. Ravana Gurbaz he's a little superstar. Like I think he's going to be really good for quite a few years to come. But I think everybody just did their part. Ibrahim Zadran, I thought, played a very well paced knock. Ramat Shah and Hazmatullah Shahidi were both excellent. They just did exactly what they needed to. They put away pretty much every bad ball, which is all you need to do in ODIs. And kind of when we get onto the England game, which obviously we're going to have a lot to vent about, just little things like having the confidence to wait for the bad ball and just going about your innings in a mature way is exactly what Afghanistan did. And to be honest, I wouldn't have put them down at the start of this tournament. I wouldn't have said if anybody put up 280 that Afghanistan were going to chase it down. But here they are. It was obviously a good batting track, and they did exactly what they needed to. So it was brilliant from them. Okay, so we'll move on to another team that I thought, I think this might be the theme of the podcast, pacing the innings perfectly. It was an absolute masterclass from South Africa against Bangladesh. And Bangladesh obviously haven't been a great team this year. They haven't looked great in the bowling department, certainly haven't looked good in the batting department. But South Africa, on the other hand, other than that one kind of hiccup against the Netherlands, which was brilliant, and shout out to the Netherlands before we get onto their little, their tragic display the other day. South Africa were incredible, and it was almost exclusively down to Quinton de Kock for the first, for the start of the innings, and it was him pacing his innings really well. Like, he was about to run a ball, if not a little bit. He was teetering either side of 100 strike rate, and that was fine. And he felt, you could tell that he was comfortable with that. And then, 2 early wickets didn't matter. Aidan Markram came and he got a 60 off 69, so not too quick. Heinrich Klaasen came in, he got himself set, and then once de Kock had got his century, something happened. They just switched, and they absolutely teed off. And it was only really in the last sort of, I think I want to say like 10, 15 overs that they really started to switch it on. And it was just a perfectly placed innings, perfectly paced is what I mean. And they completely dismantled Bangladesh. They were left in complete disrepair. And, just Heinrich Klaasen is easily one of the best middle order white ball batters at the moment. David Miller is also one of those. So those two finishing an innings is exactly what you want. And I just don't think Bangladesh had any answers for it. They gave up the chase pretty early. Mamadullah just was like, oh, you know what? We've lost this anyway. I'm going to go and get my ton. Very well made 10. 10? Very well made century. But other than that, it was a bit of a walk in the park for South Africa. Have you learned anything from this game?
I think we learned how, as you mentioned, how to pace an innings. I think Quinton de Kock just played an absolute blinder. Like, it batted all the way through 45 overs. There wasn't much of the game left for him once he'd got to that position. He just set it up beautifully for David Miller. The fact that there were 2 over 100 partnerships in that innings as well, the first between de Kock and Markram, and the second between de Kock and Klaasen, is just like, it's showing the impact that having that base is having on this World Cup. And I'm sure we'll talk about it when we come to speak about Australia, but setting that platform, 50 overs is a long old time. It's a long time. It's a lot of cricket in a day. And the fact that actually, if you're batting for 35 overs and you're not going too high over 6 and over, and it does feel like we're taking a step back and going to the pre-2019 philosophy of this and saying, look, don't give your wicket away. I think there is something in that, because it's allowing these teams to then put this acceleration on and really go for it. I think there's definitely credence in starting strong and hitting early. I mean, we saw that with England in 2019. We see that in the way that Afghanistan are playing in this World Cup, that they're hitting it and they're, really going from ball one. But if you've lost a couple of early wickets, there is no issue in just slowing down and resetting. I feel like we're going to come to talk about today's match with England and Sri Lanka in a second, but if Ben Stokes and Johnny Bairstow would just set themselves for a bit batted together for 20, 25 overs, it would have allowed them to set that platform for the likes of Livingston, Butler, Moeen Ali to come in and hit big and put a big score on the board, because England's batting has just been disastrous. We'll come on to that in a second. I think what we've learned from the South Africa game, though, is what to do compared to England's what not to do, that we'll talk about in a second.
Okay, let's move on again, because Australia, it seems like they're just turning it on at the right time in the World Cup, like they always seem to do.
Sickening, isn't it?
You know, I think, was it you or Zach just predicted this exact thing? Like they'd have a pretty rough start to the World Cup, and then they'd just switch it on at the right time, scrape into the semis, and then they'd be, you know, they'd be all right. And it looks like they're doing exactly that. They are getting the starts in the power play that a lot of other teams wish they could do. They are playing, I think, the way that England think they could play but can't. They are aggressive. They are measured. Steve Smith and Marnus Labuschagne did very well, like especially Marnus Labuschagne. He just kind of fought his way into that side, and he's retained his place by being brilliant. And then the real story, aside from David Warner's century, which was absolutely brilliant, was Glenn Maxwell. Now, again, it was paced. The whole innings was paced beautifully. They were 267 for 5 when David Warner went out in the 40th over. Okay, so, and I think Glenn Maxwell only faced his first ball in the, I want to say 41st, maybe 42nd over, so quite late on into the match. And he ends up hitting 106 off 44 balls. Oh my goodness. It's the, I think it's the fastest ODI World Cup century. It was brutal. 8 sixes in that innings. And it was a proper sort of 360 show, big show from Glenn Maxwell, which is obviously very entertaining. And I'm glad the crowd's got that spectacle. But it does show that you can be in the kind of, 266 with 10 overs to go, bless you, with 10 overs to go, and you can still absolutely switch it on, and they would 1 run shy of 400, which I don't care who you are. No team's chasing that unless it's an absolute road. And it was a decent deck, but it was not an absolute road. So outstanding from them. I don't know if you want to say anything about the Netherlands. It was
no, I think the less said about the Netherlands, the better in this case. Look, the Netherlands, they have shown us that they have promise when all the things come together. They showed us that in the game against South Africa. I think in this game today, they were just completely outclassed. Yesterday, sorry. There comes a time when you are one of these teams that is at a slight disadvantage. You can have these games where you come and you do fulfill that underdog story and are able to put on a real performance, but that doesn't always happen. And I think, as you said, Australia have just, everything has clicked into place for them at this point in the tournament. The fact that Warner, Smith, and Labuschagne all managed to get 50s, with Warner scoring 100, I think is a really promising sign for Australia. And then when you've got an X-factor player like Glenn Maxwell who can come out and do something like that Glenn Maxwell role is what Liam Livingstone is very capable of doing. But he's not had the opportunity to come to do that, because he's always been coming out after 15 overs when we're 90 for 4 or 90 for 5. So
all right, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room.
I think it is time to address this, because I'm just so cross. I want to say one more thing about Australia. Adam Zampa again, absolute magician. He's spinning it around corners, and I think he as well with that piece as well for Australia has been such a huge thing for them as well. But let's talk about England versus Sri Lanka, because I'm still cross.
All right. So if you haven't seen it, Sri Lanka absolutely spanked England. England have been humiliated time after time. I'm going to have to think of a different thing to put in the title of this video because I've used humiliated and I've used embarrassed. Maybe mortified is next. It is so bad, the type of cricket that England are playing. They made 3 changes going into this game. They got rid of Harry Brook, Gus Atkinson, and Reece Topley, who was obviously out injured. And they brought in Liam Livingston, Moeen Ali, and Chris Wokes. So they reverted back to their batting deep with all-rounders kind of mentality. It did not work. They were bowled out for 156 after winning the toss and choosing to bat. Benji, we've talked a lot about pacing innings, and this was not well paced for my money. I didn't think it was a good display.
Not at all.
What do you think went wrong?
I don't know what's going on with England. Like they are just in this mindset when they're just not able to perform at all. I don't know whether it's the fact that they're traveling before every game. I mean, they're the only team that's doing it quite like that. I don't know what it is. I don't think there is even an excuse for it, but they're just performing so below what we expect from this very talented group of players. It's almost like thinking about the England Test team from 2021 when they just went to the lowest of lows after winning the ODI World Cup. It's almost like with England, they can only excel at one form of cricket at a time. There always has to be one that isn't good, but it just wasn't a very paced innings. I think from the very start, from Milan and Bairstow, they got off to a not a terrible start. I think we had something like 68 off the first 10, 12 overs or something like that. But which is, a relatively quick, sharp start. But the fact is England had just lost wickets quite consistently. David Milan fell in the 7th over, and he just looked. Angelo Matthews, to be fair to him, bowled an absolute peach that jumped off a length and caught the edge. But he played a lot of shots that just didn't look flowy. I think we put out a tweet that was a comment that Zach put, which was about what David Milan was showing was everything that's been wrong with England, playing these panicky shots, trying to loft it over the top rather than trying to just play good cricket shots. Bairstow completely, Root barbecued himself. He comes traipsing down for a single and gets sent back by Bairstow. But then no one comes in to apply themselves to actually play that longer innings. Ben Stokes did. I mean, I don't know what you can probably have lots to say about the Stokes innings, but it meant that there just wasn't this platform for the players to come in and tee off. I feel like if Bairstow and Stokes had just rebuilt for another 20 overs, it would have been fine. But again, they panicked and Bairstow hit this stupid shot, trying to hack it over mid-on and just plops it straight to the hands of the fielder. And it's like, actually, you didn't need to play that shot. It doesn't matter that you're getting bogged down. It's just one of these classic cricket things where England just seem to be impatient and they're almost trying to force it. And I mean, that's just never a way to win a cricket match, is it?
No. So I think with David Milan, he looked brilliant when he was playing the shots. He was attacking everything that had width or was overpitched. And every single time he hit the ball, it looked beautiful. But as soon as he went for the half-hearted shot, it didn't come off and he lost his wicket. The same thing can be said for a lot of those players. As soon as they just became a bit timid and within themselves, they didn't look good. And it's a team that is completely lacking in confidence, first of all. And I think the word is insecure. I don't know if it's, a bit of small man syndrome, whatever it is. it is just complete insecurity from these English batters that they don't think that, they don't want their strike rates to dip below 100. I don't know what it is. Like you say, the only person that was willing to kind of soak up a bit of pressure was Ben Stokes. And, eventually he kind of tried to smack one and he holed out. But he was the only person that was really trying to stay in. And you're absolutely right. If they just soaked up a bit of pressure, they'd have been fine. The Joe Root run out was an embarrassment. Not as embarrassing as the Adil Rashid run out. But either way, 2 run outs in a collapse. This was like watching the 2021 England Test side. Batting deep did not help us at all. Liam Livingstone played across to a straight one. I could dissect everything wrong with this individually, but what it comes down to is they were insecure. They were not happy to just pace their innings. All we needed was a platform of, 170 to 200 going into the 40th over.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd be able to just accelerate, get up to 280, 300. We're laughing. It is doable. That's exactly how we needed to do it.
Yeah.
And yet this England side just were completely embarrassed. And we do have some C&Qs that are relevant. So the first one was via YouTube from a member. So obviously it's the absolute priority. It was from Look Who's Watching. And he said, Cricket Nerds question. Chris Silverwood has a sweet revenge. Is it time to hashtag bring back Silverwood? And it's sad to see one of my favorite teams perform so poorly with a sad Cricket Nerds emoji. If you want to use those emojis, become a member. So there we go. Should we bring back Chris Silverwood? I guess that kind of harks to maybe a more nuanced question of, is it time for Mott to go?
I feel like we're not going to bring back Chris Silverwood after the way he exited and yeah, is now very much part of that Sri Lankan setup. Look, there were issues anyway with Chris Silverwood as coach. He did lead England to that 2019 World Cup, which was a massive triumph. But I feel like changing the leadership, it may be the right move. I think England just haven't looked on it at all since Matthew Mott's taken over. I don't know whether that's just because, he was a shock appointment anyway. Like, I was sort of expecting it to go to somebody like Paul Collingwood. I feel like there may be talks with the ECB. I don't think changing the coach is going to have an impact on the performance of this team. I don't know what it is with this team. It's just like, it just looks like they're shell-shocked, and they've been shell-shocked the whole of this World Cup. I think Butler came out after the game today and just said, this is a huge disappointment and a shock to everyone within their setup. And like, they're absolutely fantastic cricketers, and Matthew Mott in his own right is a fantastic coach. But it's just not come together in this scenario. And I think that's changing that. I don't think that's going to solve anything in the short term. I think there's more of an issue where the 50 over cricket is now so not thought about in England. Like, there's such a focus on Test and T20. That's all that there really is. You look at the flagship tournament in the England domestic setup now, with it being the 100, which is an even shorter form of cricket. And you look at the List A Championship, which is the One Day Cup, which used to be like this massive accolade to win it. And that's now a second 11 championship that nobody really seems to care about in the county setup. So I think that's more of an issue with what we're getting with the performance. I think, that being said, England also, as I said, just really looks shell-shocked too. And just don't look like they've put enough time and preparation into ODIs.
So I think there's something to be said about the form of England as well. But I would say that I think a change in leadership probably would have a short-term effect. We've seen what happened with the Test side. I don't see any reason why it couldn't happen with the white ball side. The next Cricket Nerds question we had was via Twitter from Jagan, who said, CNQ, for the next pod, people say that this England team is too old and this is the worst than their campaign in 2015. So are England going to go for a complete overhaul? And if so, who are the players they're going to keep? Mine are Butler, Wood, and Root. So who are you going to keep if there is a complete overhaul? So I think realistically, we're going to sack anybody that's over the age of about 33.
Is this for the next World Cup?
For the next World Cup, yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I think, like it's 4 years away. It's a long time. We are going to have to rebuild. And I think there are plenty of good players that are waiting in the wings, with high potential. I think my openers are going to be Salt and Jax in the future. I'm sacking off Milan and Bairstow. Root, maybe. Yeah.
I can see Root staying in the side. I can see Ben Stokes having retired again.
Yeah, I'm definitely not having Stokes. I'll have Brook in there.
I think Brook will still be around.
But look, probably. But I don't know.
I could even see Captain Zach Crawley in the white ball side. Honestly, think Zach Crawley is got he has a bit of a Jason Roy about him, but I know with Crawley his focus is on the Test side. From a bowling perspective,
honestly, I think he might be the next successor as well in the white ball side, because Butler has shown that he is not a great captain. An outstanding player, probably the best white ball player England have produced, but not a good captain.
I mean, he captained England to a T20 World Cup.
Yeah, but I think that team could have. I reckon I could have captained that team to a T20 World Cup. It's just like, I'll just go out and play T20 like you always do, lads. I think that was. I don't think he had that much of an effect on that team, and I think his tactics, even in that side, if we really diagnosed it, were not good. We lost a lot of. There were some bad field placements and field decisions, everything like that. Yeah, and then there were lots of high potential players for the future. We might do a separate video, maybe a members only thing, where we just talk about who we're going to have as a future England 11. But that's a great question, Jagan. And yeah, I think there are lots of players. I think probably the ones from this 11 that we're in today, I would say Butler probably. Is there anybody else from this 11?
Butler, Brook. Well, Brook wasn't in today.
Root.
Maybe.
Right. That's about it.
That's it.
Maybe Wood if his body holds up, but it's a long time.
Yeah, but I can then see like a new look bowling attack in Matt Potts, Gus Atkinson, Bryden Cast, that the likes of those players coming through.
And a healed Jofra Archer.
A healed Jofra Archer and a Rahan Ahmed. So yeah, it's very interesting to see what the future is going to hold in this England team. I think right now in this World Cup, I mean, let's be honest, they've not really got a hope of qualifying now. They have just been rubbish this World Cup. Potentially worse than 2015, but we'll see. But anyway, want to thank you all for watching. Two blokes complain about England playing cricket. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you want to become a member and have those priority reply to comments and CNQs, and potentially some membership content coming in the future, the link is all down there in the description. And all our social medias are in the link tree. Listen to us on any of your favorite podcasting sites. Links are all in the link tree. Join our fantasy team. It's probably a bit late by now, but if you've got a fantasy team and you haven't joined the league yet, be sure to do that. Actually, it's the end of game week 5 today. So game week 6 starts tomorrow with Pakistan versus South Africa. So get ready for that. because on Sunday, England are going to get absolutely battered by India. But anyway, that's all that we're going to speak about this evening, and we'll catch you in the next video.